When my daughter-in-law arrived at the hospital right after my son's death, the first thing she asked the lawyer wasn't about the funeral, but, "When do we read the will?" The fateful phone call came at 2 a.m. At 67, I had learned that no good news ever arrives in the middle of the night. My trembling hand fumbled for the phone on the third ring. A strange voice on the other end mechanically informed me that my son, James, had died in a car accident on his way home from a late meeting. My world shattered. 10 years earlier, I had buried my husband, but the pain of losing a child was a completely different abyss, a cruel reversal of the natural order. I arrived at the hospital in a daze, still in my pajamas under my coat. And there, amid the sterile smell of disinfectant and the glaring fluorescent lights, I saw Sophia, James's wife. She wore a designer suit, her perfect makeup seemingly unruffled by the tragedy. But something was wrong. The instinct of a former financial investigator within me stirred, sharper than the pain that was tearing me apart. Sophia wasn't just cold, she was agitated. Her eyes darted toward her phone, her fingers tapping the screen impatiently. Then she hurried to a corner of the hallway, and I overheard a whispered, hurried call. "The plan has to change. Everything's messed up." "What plan?" As my heart was breaking from losing my son, a chilling current of suspicion began to creep in. A few days later, we sat in the office of Thomas Bennett, James's best friend and lawyer. Thomas's grief was evident in his reddened eyes, a stark contrast to Sophia's terrifying composure. As Thomas began to read the will, the air in the room thickened. James left Sophia the suburban vacation home and a substantial life insurance policy. A fleeting look of smugness crossed Sophia's face, followed by confusion, and finally a poorly concealed fury as Thomas read on. The main house at 1742 Oakwood Lane, the entire valuable art collection, and the management of the Educational Trust for Lucas are left to the deceased's mother, Mrs. Eleanor Reynolds. Sophia went still. "That's impossible," she hissed. "That collection, that house, they're ours." Thomas calmly slid a folder across the desk. Everything was in James's name. "This will was updated 6 weeks ago. It's completely legal and witnessed." 6 weeks ago, my investigator's mind began to connect the dots. James's sudden business trips, his tired, distant look in our last few meetings, and now Sophia's changed plan. James had known something. He had acted to protect his legacy, to protect his son. He had structured his estate as a financial fortress, and I was to be its guardian. After Sophia stormed out, promising to fight this to the end, Thomas asked me to stay. He looked at me, his expression serious. "Eleanor, there's one more thing. James instructed me to give it to you only after the will was read." He didn't hand me a letter. Instead, from a desk drawer, Thomas took out a cold, old-fashioned metal key and placed it in my palm. "What is it?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "The key to a safe deposit box at First National Bank," Thomas replied. "He said everything you need to know is in there. He trusted your meticulousness and sharp eye more than anyone." I gripped the key tightly. The chill of the metal seemed to transmit straight to my heart. This wasn't a last will and testament. This was an instruction, a beginning. My son, a talented architect, had drawn the final blueprint of his life not with a pencil on paper, but with legal clauses and locked-away secrets. And he had entrusted me, a retired investigator, with the final and most important case of my career, to find out the truth behind his death and protect the future of my grandson. The bank vault room was cold and silent, a chilling contrast to the storm raging inside me. The key fit perfectly. The heavy metal door of the safe deposit box swung open, revealing a simple velvet box. Inside, there was no jewelry or property deeds, but a tablet and a carefully sealed envelope. My hand trembled as I opened the letter. James's handwriting, achingly familiar. "Mom, if you are reading this, it means I didn't get the chance to handle things myself. I'm sorry to leave this burden to you, but there is no one I can trust more than you. My marriage has been fractured for a long time. I discovered that Sophia was not only having an affair with her business partner, Richard Harlow, but that they were also secretly moving the family assets into his high-risk investment projects. I tried to stop it, but she was too cunning. I'm afraid she would squander all the legacy I want to leave for Lucas. All the evidence I collected is on this tablet. Use your skills, for Lucas. Protect him. I turned the tablet on. It was like a meticulously prepared case file. Bank statements with unusual transfers highlighted in red. Email chains between Sophia and Richard, filled with phrases like our future and just be patient a little longer. And then, I tapped on an audio file. James's voice came on, tired and tense. Sophia's voice replied, cold and sharp as a knife. You're betting our son's future on a man you just met, James said, his voice strained. You don't understand, James, Sophia replied, her voice completely without remorse. This is my chance. I feel trapped in this life. I want to be free, to have something of my own. Trapped. That word cut into me like a blade. Trapped with my wonderful son, with my lovely grandson. My heart sank, but my investigator's mind grew sharp. My mission was clear. Leaving the bank, I was no longer a grieving mother. I was an actress on the most important stage of my life. The play had begun. And Sophia, not one to keep me waiting, walked straight into the trap. She called me that very afternoon. Eleanor? Her voice was falsely sweet. I've been thinking a lot. I know all these legal documents must be complicated for you. You don't need to worry about them. I let out a dramatic sigh, making my voice sound shaky and tired. Oh, Sophia, I really don't understand anything. My head is spinning. I'm just an old woman, you know. That was the bait, and Sophia bit instantly. A few days later, she came to the house, bringing Lucas along as an emotional shield. After letting him play in the garden, she sat down across from me, her face full of sympathy. Eleanor, I have a proposal. To simplify everything for Lucas, so he doesn't have to endure any more stress, please sign over the house and the trust management to me. In return, I'll ensure you have a generous monthly allowance. You won't have to worry about money anymore. You can just enjoy your golden years and visit Lucas whenever you want. What a brazen move. Using my son's legacy to buy me off, and using my grandson as a hostage. A cold rage welled up in my chest, but on my face, I only showed confusion and a hint of gratitude. Oh, that's very generous, Sophia. But I need some time to think. Everything is so sudden. As soon as she left, I got to work. My years of investigative skills, long dormant, were now awakened. I started a notebook, meticulous and methodical. Every lie Sophia told was recorded. The 15th of October. Sophia said she had to meet an important client downtown. Credit card statements showed she had dinner at a fancy French restaurant with Richard. Lucas was left with a babysitter he had only met once. The 22nd of October. Sophia complained about living expenses. Credit card statements again showed a new Chanel bag and a spa treatment worth hundreds of dollars. I also secretly installed a software program into the house's security system, which James had installed long ago. It didn't record inside, but it logged all unusual activities. The night Sophia came home at 2 a.m., the times Richard's sports car was parked around the corner a few minutes before she left. Each piece of data was a brick, building a solid wall of evidence around her. I played the part of a frail, vulnerable mother-in-law who seemed to be softening to her daughter-in-law's generosity. Meanwhile, backstage, I was gathering every single thread, preparing to tighten the noose of truth around her neck. Sophia thought she was directing the play, but she didn't know that I was the one pulling the strings. I had been delaying signing the papers for 2 weeks. Each time Sophia asked, I came up with a new excuse. I need my lawyer to look it over. But he's on vacation, or I'm not sure about the tax terms, Sophia. We have to be careful. I could see her patience running out like sand through an hourglass. Her sweet facade began to crack, revealing the selfish and cruel nature beneath. And then, the final straw. Sophia blocked me in the hallway after I had just seen Lucas off to school. The fake smile was gone. Her eyes were like ice. I'm tired of your games, Eleanor, she hissed, her voice low and threatening. If you don't sign this weekend, Lucas and I are moving to California. Richard has a big business opportunity there. Do you know the laws in that state? Grandparent rights are virtually zero. You'll never see Lucas again. Choose now. A chill ran down my spine. But not from fear, from confirmation. This was it. the blatant threat, the final weapon of a desperate person. She had just handed me the bullet I needed. "I'll think about it," I replied, my voice perfectly shaky, and turned away before she could see the flash of determination in my eyes. Immediately, I called Thomas. "We have enough, Thomas. She just threatened to take Lucas away. We have to act now." Within 24 hours, an emergency guardianship petition was filed with the court. Sophia's threat was the spark, but the entire cache of evidence I had carefully collected was the gunpowder, the meticulous notebook, the credit card statements, the security log, and most importantly, the tablet containing James's final legacy. The courtroom was suffocatingly tense. Sophia, in an elegant black dress, looked like a grieving widow being bullied by her cruel mother-in-law. Her lawyer, a slick talker, painted a portrait of me as a bitter, jealous old woman trying to seize her daughter-in-law's assets by manipulating her poor grandson. I sat still, maintaining a calm expression, letting him spew his venom. I glanced at Sophia and saw her nod discreetly in satisfaction. She thought she was winning. Then it was Thomas's turn. He stood up, his demeanor composed but powerful. He presented each piece of evidence logically and methodically, from Sophia's neglect of Lucas to her shady financial transactions with Richard. Sophia's lawyer repeatedly objected, but the judge overruled him. And then Thomas delivered the final blow. "Your Honor, we would like to present an audio recording. This is the last conversation between my client, the deceased, and Mrs. Jensen." Sophia's lawyer jumped up. "Objection! This recording cannot be authenticated." "We have an expert ready to authenticate the voice, Your Honor," Thomas replied calmly. "And it was found among the deceased's personal property." The judge nodded. "Proceed." Thomas pressed a button. The entire courtroom fell silent as my son's voice came on, clear and full of pain. "You're betting our son's future." And then Sophia's voice replied, cold and defiant. "I feel trapped. I want to be free." I looked at Sophia. Her face was ashen. The mask of the grieving widow had shattered, revealing the raw, selfish truth beneath. Her confession, broadcast from the grave, had condemned her. The air in the room thickened. Not even her lawyer had a word to say. It was the moment truth won. Sophia's play had ended. The judge, a woman with a stern gaze, looked directly at Sophia for a long moment before delivering her verdict. Her voice was clear and unwavering. Based on the evidence presented, particularly Mrs. Jensen's own admission, and the clear indications of emotional neglect toward the child, as well as the intent to remove the child from this jurisdiction, the court finds there is sufficient basis for an emergency intervention. She paused for a second. Temporary guardianship of the minor child Lucas Reynolds, effective immediately, is granted to his grandmother, Mrs. Eleanor Reynolds. The court also requests a comprehensive and thorough investigation into Mrs. Sophia Jensen's parental fitness. The next hearing will be scheduled after the investigation results are available. The judge's gavel came down, a definitive sound, like a final period. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past few weeks finally lift. I had won, but this was not a victory to celebrate. It was a release. I looked at Sophia. Her eyes blazed with a fire of hatred, aimed squarely at me. I knew this fight wasn't over. But at least, for now, Lucas was safe. He was safe in the arms of the person who would always put him first. And that's all that mattered. The court's full investigation was like a cold surgical dissection of Sophia's life. Every credit card bill, every absence, every lie was exposed under the harsh light of truth. Stripped of access to James's assets and facing the prospect of intense scrutiny, Sophia finally realized she had lost. The wall of evidence that James and I had built was impenetrable. Richard, her co-conspirator, was now the one urging her to retreat. He didn't want to be dragged into a messy legal battle that could affect his business projects. "Let it go, Sophia." I could imagine him saying, "We'll start over somewhere else, without the burden." And Sophia made a chillingly pragmatic and cold decision, one that perfectly defined who she was. She chose freedom. Through her lawyer, she offered to completely relinquish all parental rights. No dispute, no appeal. In return, she wanted her remaining assets, the vacation home, and the life insurance policy to be settled quickly, without any further financial investigation. She had sold her son for a ticket to a new life. I accepted without a moment's hesitation, because Lucas's peace was worth more than any fight. Many years passed. The house that had been silent with grief was now filled with laughter, lively arguments over homework, and the smell of freshly baked cookies on weekends. Lucas grew taller than me and became a smart, mature teenager. The sadness of losing his father never completely disappeared, but it had settled into a warm memory, no longer a throbbing wound. What warmed my heart the most was seeing him sit for hours at his drawing table, sketching houses, bridges. James's passion for architecture had been reignited in his son. Lucas lived a stable, happy, and safe life, everything James had sacrificed to protect. One quiet autumn evening, while Lucas was in his room studying, I sat alone in James's office, which had become our shared space. I flipped through one of his old sketchbooks, the mementos I treasured most. And then, tucked between the pages, I found a drawing I had never seen before. It was a detailed sketch of a small, cozy house with a large garden and a big oak tree providing shade. Every line radiated a sense of peace and familiarity. And in the bottom corner, in James's handwriting, was a short note. For Mom and Lucas, a place to start over. My tears fell silently. Now I understood. The true legacy my son left behind was not in a bank vault or complex legal clauses. It was not a physical asset to be seized or fought over. His legacy was the truth he bravely faced. It was the safety he carefully engineered. It was the love he wrapped in every final action of his life. He built a fortress not with bricks and stone, but with foresight and love, to protect the people he loved most from the storm he knew was coming. I looked out the window, toward the backyard garden. Lucas had just stepped out, holding a watering can, and began tending to the rose bushes we had planted together. The golden sunset enveloped him, like a warm embrace. I stood up and joined him in the garden. Together, we cared for the small plot, under the shade of the tree that James would have loved. Amid the smell of damp earth and the faint scent of flowers, I felt his presence, strong and peaceful. We had started over, just as he had wished. And in this peace, we were continuing his greatest legacy, the legacy of love, which will never fade.